SMCI is in a crucial spot, closing at 58.23, remaining in the zone after getting that nice green wide bar, getting that leg up above that 54.20. Right, we were consolidating a bit between the 50.70 and 54.20 type of range, but then we got that very nice move up, tapped that $62 level, and we kind of been going back and forth there, a bit of a battle, but definitely good to see buyers remain that ultimate control, staying in that stair step like fashion after breaking this longer term resistance here. So should we expect a continued move to the upside and getting to that $66 level, or is it time that we get a pullback? Now guys, before we start this analysis, looking at the overall market on QQQ, we see that a pullback was attempted, right? We've gotten that big movement down, but buyers have responded well to that. If you look at Nvidia as well, we see same thing happen, right? We got that seller attempt trying to pull us back, but then we've gotten the buyer stepping in very nicely here. And Nvidia being one of the more major stocks in tech. So looking bullish here, guys, as we correct very nicely for the buyers. Now, as we turn back, SMCI does something similar. Only difference is that we didn't have that very nice correction with that wide green bar. But we did see a very nice wide green bar entering within this type of range here, getting that move to that 62.36. So still remaining bullish on SMCI as well. After that pullback, did get a considerable move up still. Now taking a look on the weekly, guys, the main thing that sticks out here is that after we got that very explosive move up to that 122.90 range, we got in this longer term descending range, and now we've broken that. And since we've broken that, price has been going up, right? Bulls in that ultimate control. We have a price target of $66, that being the last time we tried to wick above there, getting past that resistance prematurely, and we couldn't do so. See a lot of selling pressure there, pushing us back within this range, but that is our price target on the channel, 66, and a attempt movement above that. Once we get within this range, you got that very explosive movement up. A lot of volatility going on here, right? Sellers push us down, find this ascending support, pushes back to that resistance, big flush down all the way to that $17 level, where we still have this volatility in play. Try to break that resistance, cannot do so. And once we get to that range for the third major time, we kind of hold tight. We don't see a very explosive movement down or up. We just kind of hold tight and bleed out of that range, and we've been on a very nice ascending profile since. So weekly stands bullish. As we zoom in on the weekly here, guys, we see that there is a bit of selling pressure at that $62 level, given that longer top wick. But instead of giving the control to the sellers and shutting down, we do see a nice kind of rebound staying within this zone. Last time we saw a big movement up, breaking that range into that 66. Right after we got that strong wick showing a lot of selling pressure, we saw a very drastic movement to the downside. So nice to see that we don't let the sellers do that, and the buyers do remain in that general control. All right, guys, turning to the daily now, we see a better perspective of when we broke that, right? Like we explained, very nice tight price action here, getting to the top of that range and kind of just bleeding out, not letting price get pushed all the way back down. And once we fully get out of that range, we get that nice green wide bar, an obvious shift in momentum to get above that 44 and test that 47. Right, this is an obvious trend shift, as we've seen a lot of back and forth price action within once we got in that break of that range, right? And then we see a nice green wide bar breaking this shorter term resistance and above that 44. Now solidifying their continued movement up with this green bar. You see volume kind of flush in here when that happens, right? Volume stays pretty stagnant throughout this entire move out, but we do see the higher peaks right around that movement. That gets us to that range around that 46 level to that 50.70, and we chop there for a bit, week and a half to 2 weeks of price action within that range. Get that leg up, find another consolidation range, right? We kind of bounce around, not as much as we did here, but very similar. So I'll try to get their movement down. Buyers buy right back up. 3 green candles in a row. That being a very nice shift in momentum once again. Green wide bar. And getting the 4th green candle, really pushing us above that range and close to the top to that $62 level. So time and time again, buyers are winning these little fights, right? Win that fight right there, picking up that volatility from that, movement out. We hold very tightly here, so we really pick up that volatility there, get within a consolidation zone, and then we get the nice move out. Once again, get another consolidation zone, and we see buyers really pick up that steam once sellers try to get their movement down. That roughly being a little bit over a 20% movement, and then to the upside around a 25% movement as they respond to the sellers trying to push us down. So really nice stuff. And as of more recent price action, we see a red wide bar once we hit that zone. So sellers really have that control. Once we hit that top of 62.36, pushes us to the bottom of that range there. We do see buying pressure and a movement up. Like I said, the majority of the market did get a move down there. So that's more so based on the majority of the market, right? If the entire market didn't pull back, kind of likely that we would have probably stayed towards the top of that range there. But still solid reaction, right? Not getting pushed all the way down to the floor. Bit of indecision on that more recent candle, being a very thin body with both an upper and a lower wick, showing that buyers nor the sellers were really in that ultimate control. So the next couple of days of price action will be crucial, but I do think that we kind of see something like we've been seeing, guys, right? We've gotten these chop zones, movements up, chop zones, movements up. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a little bit more volatile chop, little bit of back and forth before we get that retest and leg up. If the overall market is getting crushed, won't be good for the stock, but I do remain bullish. I think that we do chop around here a bit. My prediction is we do retest at 62, and then for the full price prediction, get that test of 66, that being the previous high. Try to go over that, right? Reclaim that level, and there's not a ton holding us back past that level, right? There's other micro resistances, but really did see a very, if we go back to the weekly, a very nice continuation up to that 122 after we broke out of this pennant-like range. Over time, we've developed tougher resistances as we see here once we got kind of within this range, but we surpassed most of them. Really that 62 and that 66 being the final resistances to fully get out of this kind of range here. So we do think that we will end up getting the test of 66 unless there's some very drastic bad pullback within the entire market that could really bring SMCI down here. We are a bit overextended, but nothing too crazy. We have broken a very major resistance, so that's a point for the bulls, and I do think that we do kind of chop around here and get that movement up. All right, guys, now on the hourly, we see a better perspective of that stair step like pattern, right? We've gotten in these big movements up after breaking out of that long-term resistance and these chops, so we got that nice movement up, breaking that shorter term resistance that we found there, and then we kind of chop around, get that movement up, chop around. So let's try to find their move. That's where we see that nice drastic move to the upside, tapping that $62 level. Overall market pulls back, so we pull back, but we don't pull back all the way to the floor, close to around that gap up candle bottom, trend to the top, and we see a smaller pullback now. So I do think that it's possible that we see a stair step like fashion back to the top, retouching that 62 and further going past that, getting to that 66. We are a bit overextended, but not in a very narrow move. We've just seen a very clean and healthy ascending profile after getting crushed under that range, last retest that we had there at that 66. And buyers are continuing to win these battles, right? That very nice green white bar really aiding that full movement up and out of that range there. And buyers continuing to win these micro battles, pushing price higher, finding new consolidation zones. So I think that buyers have even showed us as of recent times that they are very much the dominant force in this battle. Seeing that very nice reaction to the sellers trying to bring us under this support zone of 50-70. Things will not change unless the overall market pulls us down, finding maybe a smaller pullback, right? Wouldn't shock me to see a little bit of pullback to one of these consolidation zones, try to regain that power, and buyers try to push it back up. Not completely out of the question, but I do think as of short term and as long as the overall market is healthy, we test that 62, we test that 66, and find that possible break before finding a real pullback. So that's the price prediction for SMCI. Let me know in the comments what you guys have marked up for SMCI. What's your price predictions, both short and long term? I appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end. If you guys want to see me continue to cover SMCI, make sure to like and subscribe. As always, trade smart, and I'll see you all in the next one.